If you're ready for 30 more epic gaming clips, hit the like button and get your snacks ready. Richard was doing some beautiful drifts in his Subaru. He sent us this epic clip of a reverse drift through a hall entrance. Talk about threading the needle. Magnus was driving his Volvo in snowy conditions when he lost control on a curve. He flew off the road, crashed into a rock, and rolled over. Sim Racing Drive sent us footage of two Porsches racing around a track. Suddenly, one of the cars went off the track and started rolling over at high speed. The rolling caused a lot of damage to the vehicle, and the driver was hospitalized. Race officials were also injured by flying debris. The 40 Anomaly was traveling from sector to sector in a very futuristic environment. Suddenly, a glitch in the Matrix brought him to a sudden stop, ending his trip. This emitter was driving downtown on the West Coast. As he entered an intersection, he was T-boned by a red light runner. He contacted the police, and they came and arrested the driver that had crashed into him. Anton sent us footage from his garage security camera. It recorded a strong tornado that damaged a lot of cars and also some areas of his property. If you like security camera videos, be sure to subscribe to Wham Baam Security Cam. Nadir was driving in snowy conditions when he lost control on a curve. He flew into the oncoming lane and crashed into a car. He kept sliding until he crashed into a building. Brody was driving his Lexus on a highway. He was driving at high speed when he lost control while merging into the left lane. He tried to regain control, but he ended up crashing into a tree. Daimondo was driving his semi-truck when he recorded two epic crashes. Both were caused by other drivers being reckless. Remember, never drive beyond the limits of the conditions or your own skills. Andre was driving his Ford pickup truck when another driver merged into his lane and stopped. Andre was driving at high speed. Even though he slammed on the brakes, he still crashed into the car. His pickup wasn't very damaged, but the same can't be said for the car. This emitter was stopped at a red light when a Ford crashed into a stopped Rolls-Royce. The crash totaled the Rolls-Royce after causing $250,000 in damage. Eden was driving her Tesla Model 3 when a Toyota 4Runner bumped into her from behind before oncoming vehicles drifted into her lane and crashed into her head-on. All three cars were totaled, and Eden replaced her Model 3 Long Range with a Model 3 Performance. Ambush was waiting in his pickup at an intersection when he witnessed a high-speed collision. A Hyundai driver smashed into a muscle car. The muscle car was sent into a tree and onto its side. The Hyundai driver was found responsible for the wreck, and both cars were totaled. O'Melons tested out an off-road buggy. Check out how steep and muddy that hill is. Cap was stopped in a traffic jam when he watched a cement truck rear-end a hatchback, pushing it under a semi-truck. There were two people in the car. Thankfully, they survived thanks to the car's aftermarket roll cage. This emitter was drifting his Miata. Suddenly, he noticed a truck behind a curve and he stopped drifting immediately. That caused him to lose control of his car and he crashed into a wall. Then he slid and fell down to a parking lot. Mr. Peter was driving his hatchback when he started overtaking a few vehicles. He lost control, sideswiped a car, and spun out into the trees. Reno was racing a McLaren P1 GT when an opponent ahead of him suddenly slowed down. He slammed on the brakes, scratched his opponent's car, and flew out of the curve. Thankfully, he didn't hit anyone else. Paul was calmly driving his car in Italy. All of a sudden, a Bugatti Chiron driver failed to yield to him. Sadly, he T-boned the Bugatti. Jacob Green was driving on a snowy highway when he noticed stopped traffic ahead. He stopped behind them before realizing it was an accident scene. All of a sudden, he was rear-ended by a truck. Soon after that, another semi-truck crashed into them. The wreck destroyed around 10 vehicles. Karami Jarkson was test driving a supercar on a racetrack. Soon after he entered a curve, he lost control. Thankfully, he didn't crash into anything. Courtney was driving on a highway one night. All of a sudden, an oncoming driver lost control and flew into her lane. Sadly, she and another driver crashed into the oncoming car. The other drivers in front of her stopped and helped her and the driver of the ETK. The driver of the ETK was transported to a hospital but made a full recovery. This submitter was driving his Cherrier picnic downhill. He didn't notice a sharp curve behind a narrow road. He went too fast into the curve and crashed into a tree. Morgan Trey was driving his supercar in Utah. When he went too fast into a curve, he lost control and crashed into an oncoming vehicle. Mike sent us this footage of a school bus getting hit by a box truck. The driver of the box truck was drunk and had no control over his vehicle. That led to the unfortunate collision with the school bus. A few kids on the bus were injured and the drunk driver was hospitalized. Austin was driving his black SUV in Sandy Shores. Suddenly, another driver failed to yield to him and they collided at high speed. Thankfully, Austin escaped with only minor injuries. This submitter was driving his car when, all of a sudden, an oncoming driver drifted into his path. He made an evasive maneuver, but then he lost control and crashed into an oncoming truck. Courtney was driving on a West Coast highway when, all of a sudden, a red Durango fell down a hill and landed on the highway. Everyone tried to avoid the SUV, but sadly, all four cars collided with each other. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. Tom was driving his Mercedes S-Class on a highway when his rear tires exploded. That caused him to spin out and he crashed into the guardrail. Thankfully, he was uninjured. Sylveon Tribe was entering an intersection when he witnessed an AI car accident. One of the NPCs wasn't paying attention and bumped into the other. Honestly, this sort of accident seems very believable.